Hey everyone, so today I want to talk to you guys about a incident that occurred over the course of, I would say, half a year, which I learned a lot from, and it occurred um, quite a while ago, years ago, and I think it's very important because it taught me a lot of things, um, and the whole story is quite extensive. So I have distilled it down and made it very, very quick and easy so that you can get the most bang for your buck in the least time. So the first thing is that I learned how a female, when you are in a state of scarcity of women, and again, if you're a female viewer, the same thing can apply. I've observed that it can apply if you're a female with the male gender. If you're in a state of scarcity, um, you tend to have all these chemical reactions going on that can all of a sudden put you in a place of uh, almost being infatuated with a specific person because they have shown interest in you. And this manifested for me because there's this one female who, at the time when I first met her and so forth, she seemed just pretty slightly above average, no big deal, nothing really spectacular in any way. Um, and I guess what it was certain factors in play that just switched everything around, and I ended up somehow believing that she was so amazing and so beautiful and all this stuff. And looking back, uh, it all occurred because of factors like the girl guy ratio in the community I was around with my peers, the lack of other females, let alone females that showed interest in me, and lack of association with females. And all this stuff store just plays together. And even if you have certain associations, if you don't have like a certain level of abundance of just females around that are attracted to you, or that ability to be able to go out and choose females, that can play a subconscious factor, in my opinion. And this sort of played a huge role over the course of, I would say, half a year, with other factors like social media and the internet, which brings everything to a certain level of connectivity, and noticing that there was male competition and other males being interested in her, and all this stuff, boom, changed things. And it was so ridiculous now looking back when I first started off, because I remember, I was very youthful at the time, very cognizant of who I was, or at least, I can do math. I could think on a fairly clear level. Looking back, though, I feel like at that time in my life, which wasn't that long ago, but kind of was, I was very much sort of just this person who was just going through life, not really even thinking, no goals at all, just sort of a random dunce, in my opinion, just going along life. However, um, I was more or less very cognizant of myself in terms of the average person's ability. So I wasn't like clouded in judgment. I didn't do drugs or anything like that. And at the very beginning, I was somewhat, again, lackadaisical and just lollygagging through life in every way you can think of, which I think most people go through and most people do. And so I was just, going through life, not really having many options, but just enjoying life nonetheless. With all these males around, the girl guy ratio was horrible for many reasons. And I believe at the very beginning, I noticed this girl was like, whatever, just slightly above average, nothing spectacular. And I guess it was through the fact that she was up to par, at least with my standards to a certain extent, nothing spectacular. And in addition to that, that she showed interest in me, um, which at the time, because of my shyness, and I feel like this, shyness is not something that's uncommon. Um, and so because of my shyness, I was very adverse and conservative in my judgment of whether or not um, people were interested in me. So she had to show very obvious signs, and even then, I would walk away thinking, I'm not really sure if she's interested. But deep down, I'd be somewhat, my ego would be slightly boosted, and I'd be slightly happier, I guess. Um, and so, ultimately, after a lot of prodding, I eventually realized she was interested in me, which led me to this huge level of interest in her, combined with my shyness, ultimately led to this huge mess at the time. Um, and therein lies the whole, I guess you could say, lack of confidence thing. However, you might think, okay, it's very stereotypical. It's probably what you assume from watching me. But from there, I did start talking to her. I manned up, did a lot of stuff I wouldn't have usually done. And I learned a lot from there because looking back, I realized that after talking to her and a lot of stuff, for some reason, it didn't work out. There's no connection there. She didn't really try any interaction. We ran out of stuff to say very quickly. It was just very, very bad. And I feel like from retrospective analysis, sorry for the fancy words, I feel like from looking back, um, it just was a lot of infatuation, which is a lot different from actually getting to know the person and connecting with the person. Just because they look somewhat pretty doesn't mean that everything else is going to work. In addition to that, I think there's also a lot of other factors. But generally, I think it was that reason. And so to just distill it all down to stuff that you can be benefited from, first is realizing you can be dramatically influenced by your level of scarcity of the opposite gender around. That can dramatically influence how you think. You can obsess over this person like I did, um, and it can all just turn out into pure crap. The second thing is you better act quickly, and it's usually better to act with confidence and at least have more confidence. What I learned from my experience was I didn't really act until about a month and 2 months in. At that time, she probably lost interest. I definitely think she lost interest by then, thinking back. More so than that, it's just a lot of wasted time and anguish, um, because you end up finding out there's no connection there. Second off, there's a lot of wasted time and obsession and just thinking and all this stuff. And I think it really just taught me how if you're in a place of scarcity, you just subconsciously all of a sudden start obsessing and putting someone on a pedestal that really doesn't deserve it because of your lack of options. And all of a sudden, this girl who was just mediocre at the start becomes this girl that you think is so amazing, and all this stuff. And you're looking through everything through rose colored glasses. And you all of a sudden, it's so ridiculous how it happened, but you think she's the most beautiful girl ever. You think you have so much in common and all this crazy stuff, when in reality, no, it's not even true. It's just your lack of exposure and your lack of abundance that have forced you to compromise. Another thing you can learn from this my experience. Um, she had male competition, not excessive amount, but she did, and that led to one thing that I learned was that heck, um, sh- girls just like guys can lose interest and move on quickly. Now I don't know the real details about the matter because I'm not her, um, but I definitely think that it's something that you guys can learn through me, rather than going through half a year of learning it the hard way um, in this short little video. And what it is just learning that with that attention and competition and so forth, even if they show a lot of interest initially, they can move on quickly. Especially if you take too long to approach or pull the trigger, which I think is a minor thing. The more important thing is the fact that we didn't connect. Um, but for you guys, I think it's very important that I guess you uh, realize that just because she showed a lot of interest initially or anything like that, um, like you can't really base anything on that. It's like she has full rights to move on or choose another person, or don't think that you're the only person there, or that other people aren't going to court her, or all this other stuff. And I guess I learned this through the fact that uh, after a long time in, I finally, after my shyness and conservation, I realized there's some pretty darn big signs that she was interested in me. Like just some very obnoxious things she did, like just completely freezing up when she saw me and standing there for extended period of time, stuff like that. And I didn't act on it because for me, in my mind, I wasn't sure. And from there, um, you know, turns out there's other people in the picture. Ultimately, though, I don't think it really matters because for a person with abundance and a person who has those options, they will choose the person that they connect with and have more in common with more. Um, and so that's all I really want to say in a nutshell. And I hope there's something you could have learned from this experience. Um, and I do think that there's a lot of obsession for me over this person, just like thinking like, maybe I can meet her today, or maybe I can talk to her. And there's constantly like, I remember I worked up the courage for a long time to get her number, like, and then weeks before texting her, and then from texting her, you know, a lot of effort put in and a whole lot more thinking, and then just ultimately realizing, heck, she's really not putting much that effort back, and she's really not doing much back at all. And ultimately, you start to realize, hey, heck, you just putting so much faith into this because of all that initial attention or initial signs that she was interested from months back, um, and that combined with scarcity. So I think it's very important, and that's all we want to say in a nutshell. As always, leave this video a like, and I will see you in my next video. Check out my channel for other videos. See you.